Check out this assembly of guns. They all look very different, but they all have one thing in common. Can you tell what it is? Okay, obviously if you looked at the thumbnail or the title to this video, you already figured out that they all have a Navy theme. And this is the first one I want to talk about because it's extremely rare and most likely my favorite of the group. This is a K Date Luger. The S42, you see that Gothic S. S42 is the factory code. And then you'll see S's all over the place because these early, let's see S here, these early K Dates, the first variation K Dates had S's all over the place. And there's a Gothic S here. If you'll notice from the book that I wrote on Lugers, the cover is a K Date Navy. You can barely see it right here, but there's the Navy marking. It looks like that. So that and that are the same. This is a different serial number because this one comes with 2 matching magazines. It's in my personal collection, and I chose to put it on the cover of the book. Well, this week I got this one in. You'll see the serial number is 2200. There's some collectors who like these even numbers, and so they'll see that 2200 and makes it a lot more desirable for them. Again, you can see the S on the right side of the receiver. Also, you can see the S on the ejector. And as I said, all over this gun, if I took it apart, the hold open will have an S on it. The firing pin has an S. So they're just a lot of inspector proofs that were only found in the K Date Luger. Now, in the book, if you go to that chart, remember I said right in the beginning we have a chart and it goes over all the variations. So here we see in 1934, they made the K Date, which is S42. Here it's called Reichsmarine because they actually changed the name to Kriegsmarine in 1935. But Reichsmarine, you see the serial number range, and this one is in the serial range. And you can see they only made 322. So when you think about the price of like a Singer, you guys probably know about the 1911 Singer, prices in the 200,000 range. These are actually rarer than that, and they really are, considering how rare they are, they're a bargain price. We will be offering this one, as I said, it just came in this week. Let me show you a few more things about the gun. So a little bit about the Navy marking. You do see that between the wars in the Weimar period. I've seen this on other guns, and it only was, for the Luger, it was only found on the K Date 1934. So that's a Weimar era. There's no Nazi, no swastika, no Nazi symbol here. That didn't come until later. But you do see it's an Eagle M, and that style, again, only in 1934. In other guns, it's before that. In 1935, the G Date Luger, they have a Navy marking that looks a little bit different. Here's a picture of the Navy marking on a G Date. The front strap has the O property mark, which is OC, East C, and so you can see the property mark there, as opposed to the serial number here. It does come in 9mm. This is all original. There's a little chip in the grip, but we keep them together because you can see how tightly it fits. I often say you can't even slide a piece of paper in there. That's how tight these are. They're hand fit or custom fit, each one of them. And again, only 322. Oh, I started to say it's got a little chip, but I don't want to change them because these are numbered 00. Both grips on the inside are numbered 00. So that's our first example of a German Navy Luger from 1934. Now this one you all know as a 1911 Colt. This one is actually made in 1913. You can see U.S. Navy. And this serial range is from 1913. Actually, the patent date on the slide says 1913, but I believe the slide is from 1914. And it's not numbered, so it's hard to say for sure, but this slide is not numbered. The serial number on this indicates it definitely went to the Navy, and the Navy slide. They're very, very rare. I think it was only about 5,000 went to the Navy in 1913. You can see it comes with the early magazine, which is dual tone, and the lanyard loop on the bottom. That's also fairly rare. So this is a very rare U.S. 1911 Colt that also went to the Navy. Comes in .45 caliber, and I wanted to let you know I'm putting this on Gunbroker for $1. It will be on for this week and next week, depending on when you watch this video. But I have a good number of rare items that were put on Gunbroker. For example, I have a lot of people who want an NSKK PP. You can see a picture of the NSKK marking. I put it on Gunbroker for $1 because the previous owner put cold blue on it, and I'm not sure what it does to the value, so I just decided to put it on Gunbroker for $1. And we have a couple other guns on there that you might be interested in. So check out our listings on gunbroker.com. Now, this is a 1934 Mauser. We've shown these before in previous videos, but this has a stick wing eagle. And now you do see the swastika with an M underneath it. Remember when I earlier talked about this is from the Weimar era, and so this is from 1934, and even though this is a model 1934, it was made sometime after that, I believe probably about 1939, and by then the Navy adapted the swastika, the eagle with the swastika with the M instead of that Weimar era Navy marking. Remember, O property mark on this one. This one has the N for North Sea, Wilhelmshaven, up in the North Sea, and there's the property mark. They sometimes come with matching magazine. This one is also Navy marked North Sea, but it doesn't match. It's close to matching. No, not even close. We got 1145, and this is 17, and then it's covered up a little bit. So you see it's got a Navy magazine, Navy from model 1934. They made a similar model with the HSC. So the Mauser HSC, which you see here, replaced the 1934. It's a sleeker design. It has less moving parts, less expensive. So the model HSC was an improvement over the 1934. But you can see that they also came with a Navy marking. But in this case, it's on the front grip strap. Here's a gun that possibly has a Navy connection. We just can't say for sure. So let's talk about the Walther PP and PPK. This is obviously the Walther PPK. It does have a name Hans Fiedler on it in 1937. That's very cool. The gun was made probably late 36. You can see its finish is kind of worn here. Both sides of the slide are fairly worn. And this is not professionally done, so this was not done in the factory. So right off the bat, I can say this is not factory done. But it doesn't mean that people didn't private purchase a gun and put their name on it. So for example, for Navy guns, the Walther PP and PPK, we don't have any documented contract or any markings on it. If you have a PP or PPK with a Navy marking, it's probably fake. There are no records of any guns being contracted to the German Navy. However, we do know that officers, and certainly Navy officers, would buy their own personal carry weapons, and they would take it aboard ship. They would carry it on their belt, just like any other German officer. So Hans Fiedler, who theoretically was a naval officer, he could have private purchased this in 36 or 37. He could have had the local jeweler down the street engrave or inscribe that on there for him. But Hans Fiedler, this gun was sold at Rock Island Auction, if you recognize the paper. This is Rock Island. Oh, look at that. We've seen those before. That's pretty cool. That belt buckle. $15,000 to $30,000. Don't know what it sold for, but I digress. Let's go back to this gun. So this is the exact same gun, exact same serial number, and they have the name. You can see Hans Fiedler, 1937, and they estimated $2,500 to $4,500 based on the fact that this was Hans Fiedler's gun. Now, a little bit about Hans Fiedler. They talk about he was a noted U-boat commander. He served in the German Navy. You can see 36 to 44, but then it was lost at sea, and that was U-333. Hans Fiedler served in the U-boat command, and he was the commander of U-333. It goes a little bit over his history. You can see that he received the Iron Cross, first and second class. He also received the U-boat War Badge in 1939 and a Fleet War Badge So he was a decorated U-boat captain. Now, the problem with this, of course, that all sounds good, and maybe this is his. If it is his, he would have had to private purchase it, which is perfectly reasonable, and then have his name put on it. Then we would also assume that he left it at home. Certainly when the submarine was sunk in 1944, he didn't have it with him. So all of that is very reasonable, but whether or not it is his, there's no hard evidence of that. So people often say, buy the gun, not the story. And I do that, certainly at a price. And we're selling this, again, we have customers, I guess whoever bought this at Rock Island, and I don't know what the hammer price was. Doesn't really matter. It's really worth whatever somebody is willing to pay for it. For me personally, I would certainly own this gun at the right price. I would buy it at the same price as what the gun is worth. And you can ask me that privately, but I know what this would sell as a commercial gun. The fact that it has Hans Fiedler on it doesn't really impress me a whole lot. It could be either Hans Fiedler or it could be Fiedler on the roof. We don't know. Or some collector out there thought they could enhance the value by putting his name. Although, you know what, if I was going to fake that, I wouldn't have done it on a curve like that. There's plenty of space right here to have done it. Whatever the case, buyer beware. And the reason I show this to you, it has a possible Navy connection. And what do you do when you're offered a gun like this? You just pay the value. Like, let's just assume it's not this particular Hans Fiedler. But what would you pay for this gun? And the story is just kind of cool, but doesn't really help the value of the gun. Okay, this is the last Navy that I wanted to show you, and I saved it for last because A, I don't know anything, I don't know very much about antique pistols. And secondly, whenever I do an antique pistol, I get very few views. So please don't turn me off because you're going to learn something, because I did. First of all, I never saw this model before. So it came in the door, person asked me, what do you give me for it? And I said, I said, what the heck is it? That's exactly what I said. I also said, I bet if I do a video on this model, not even Ian from Forgotten Weapons has done one of these. And so I went and looked, and darn it, he did. He has done a video on this. It's an 1861 Savage and North. So it's a model 1861, and it has logo here. Savage and North, Navy pistol, revolver, Navy revolver. See that? I didn't even get it all out right. So, but this is a Navy model, 1861, made by Savage and North. This unique design, that's what really did it for me. I thought, wow, that is really unique. I haven't seen one before. But they only made about 23,000 of these. Now, I'm not sure why they call it a Navy, because only 1,000 went to the Navy, and they were used in the Civil War. So you figure 1861, this design was just in time for the Civil War. Also, they were making Colt and Remingtons. This one actually has a really good design. So why didn't the Navy adopt this? Well, two reasons. First of all, this model, to the Army, the cost was $19 to $20, whereas the single action Army was $10 to $14. So a little bit less. But it is, well, let me show you the advantages to this. First of all, this is the most obvious. And so you do function with two fingers. Your middle finger cocks it. Now, I'll take this index finger out, but you would keep both, theoretically, you would keep both in, but you cock it with this finger. And did you see the cylinder, how it rotated? Let's do that again. Watch this. See that? It goes up and back and turns. So you cock it like that. And then you can fire by pulling this trigger. I don't want to do that though because it's very old. You see the little hole right there. It is cap and ball. So it takes a little while to load cap and ball. But once it's loaded, all you do is with one hand, you can cock it and shoot it. Cock it and shoot it. Cock it and shoot it. One hand. So there I did it even though I didn't really want to. Now, if you think about the Colt and all the other single-action armies, this you can do easily with one hand and not have to move around a lot. So with this Colt single-action army or a Remington, you do have to move your hand up and cock it like that and then shoot it, which makes it a little more awkward. Anyway, I find this design a lot easier to shoot, although it was never really adopted. Now, they did have what they called a figure-8 revolver in the 1850s. This was an improvement on that. The loading rod works a lot like the Colt, and that's pretty simple. It also, if you want to know more, you can go to Ian's. He actually turns this screw, and he takes the whole thing apart. I'm not going to do that. The other oddity is if you see the hammer, the way it curves, that actually helps the aim when it's cocked. It may look awkward, but if you look down here, so I can hold it in one hand and just cock it with this hand and fire, cock it with this hand, and I can just keep my line of sight constant, as opposed to the single action army where you have to lift it up, pull it back, and then drop the hammer. Now, those of you who actually shoot single action armies are going to criticize everything I just said, but for me as a novice, this design worked really well with one hand. One other difference you'll notice right away, the Colt and the other models, the nipple is in the back, and please don't tell my mother I said nipple on YouTube. But you can see here that the nipple is actually slanted out to the side, which does make it easier to load. So that's another design difference that I believe makes it a little bit easier. But I'm not going to shoot this. It is a Savage and North Navy model, even though only 1,000 went to the Navy out of 23,000 total made. So half of them were commercial guns or went to a commercial market, and for some reason, a lot of these were smuggled to the Confederate States. I don't know if the Confederates were really trying to get them, but the American Army and Navy, at that time, the single action army and all the other revolvers they were using were 44 caliber. This is 36 caliber. The Army wanted continuity in terms of ammunition and loads and cap and ball and all that. So they said to Savage, we like the design, it's a little more money, but we like it. We'd like to order more, but we would like them in 44 caliber. And Savage said, I don't really feel like retooling the factory. So they didn't make it in 44 caliber. They basically said no to the Army. The Confederate Army was happy with the 36 or 44. I guess they were more desperate for any kind of weapon they could get. So long story short is a lot of these ended up with the Confederate Army as opposed to the Union Army or the Navy. The only other thing I wanted to say about this is I watched Ian's video and I've looked all over this gun. I do not see a serial number and there's not any military marking. So for me, it's hard to know if did this go to the Army, did it go to the Navy. I don't see any way of finding out other than it may have been marked here. But I can see definitely where this was like struck out and this was ground. So I don't know if that's just a coincidence or done on purpose, but it could have been marked here. I will look in the comments section. For those of you who do collect or study antique weapons, I'd like to learn a little bit more. I find this fascinating. And yes, we will be offering this on our website very soon. Hey, I hope you found that interesting. Most of those just came in this week. I thought it was fun to put them together. Just some interesting guns with a Navy theme. Thanks for watching.